The sound of expensive cutlery scraping against fine china filled the dining room of my family's mansion as I pushed my food around my plate, trying to tune out my sister Olivia's latest speech about her corporate achievements. And then she announced, swirling her red wine, "The board unanimously approved my proposal for the Asian expansion. We're projecting a 30% increase in revenue by next quarter." I glanced at my parents, watching their faces glow with pride. Dad, CEO of Blake Industries, nodded approvingly while Mom reached over to squeeze Olivia's hand. This was our traditional Christmas dinner, a celebration of the family business and its rising star. "What about you, Sophie?" Mom turned to me, her smile fading slightly. "Still working on that. What do you call it?" "Nexus Technologies," I supplied, straightening in my chair. "And yes, we're actually—" "Her little startup," Olivia interrupted with a laugh. "What is it now? 2 years? And still working out of that tiny office downtown?" I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to correct her. The tiny office was just a front. What my family didn't know was that Nexus Technologies had quietly become one of the fastest-growing software companies in the country. We operated under various shell companies, our true ownership hidden behind layers of corporate structuring. "Someone has to try something new," I said carefully. "Not everyone wants to work for the family business." Dad set down his fork, his expression hardening. "The family business that put you through Stanford? That paid for your MBA? That same business you turned your back on?" "I didn't turn my back on anything," I replied. "I chose to build something of my own." "Build?" Olivia snorted. "Sophie, let's be honest. You're playing entrepreneur while the rest of us do real work. Blake Industries is a Fortune 500 company. We're about to launch the biggest expansion in our history. What have you built?" If they only knew. While they'd been focused on their traditional manufacturing business, I had developed an AI-driven supply chain management system that was revolutionizing the industry. Major corporations were already using our software, including several of Blake Industries' competitors. "I'm doing fine," I said simply, taking a sip of wine. "Fine isn't the Blake standard," Mom chimed in. "Look at Olivia, youngest VP in company history, featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. We just want you to live up to your potential, darling." I thought about the email I'd received that morning, an offer from a major tech company to acquire Nexus for $2.8 billion. I turned it down. My plans were much bigger than that. "Speaking of potential," Olivia continued, "the expansion project needs additional funding. Dad, have you considered approaching Morgan Stanley? Their tech division has been very aggressive lately." I hid my smile behind my wine glass. I knew exactly why Morgan Stanley was suddenly interested in manufacturing technology. They'd been trying to get a meeting with Nexus's mysterious CEO for months. "Actually," Dad replied, "we're exploring several options. The market's tighter than we expected, but Blake Industries' reputation speaks for itself." What they didn't know was that their reputation wasn't enough anymore. The manufacturing sector was changing rapidly, and companies that didn't adapt to new technology were being left behind. I'd seen their financials, not as the daughter they dismissed, but as the secret owner of a significant portion of their stock. "Have you considered private equity?" I asked innocently. "I hear Phoenix Capital is looking for manufacturing investments." Olivia rolled her eyes. "Please don't try to give business advice, Sophie. Phoenix Capital doesn't even take meetings with companies our size. They're way out of our league." I nodded thoughtfully, not mentioning that I'd had dinner with Phoenix Capital's CEO last week. Being underestimated had its advantages. "Well," Mom stood up, smoothing her expensive dress, Shall we move to the living room for dessert? Sophie, help me with the dishes. In the kitchen, Mom busied herself with coffee cups while I loaded the dishwasher, a task Olivia was apparently too important to handle. Honey, Mom said softly, I know you think you're proving something with this startup business, but it's time to be realistic. There's always a place for you at Blake Industries. I straightened up, meeting her eyes. I am being realistic, Mom. More realistic than you know. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my CFO. Asian investors confirmed. Ready to proceed with phase 2. I typed back quickly. Green light. Start buying tomorrow. Work? Mom asked disapprovingly. On Christmas? Something like that, I replied, pocketing my phone. The market never sleeps. Back in the living room, Olivia was holding court again, detailing her plans for Blake Industries' future. I settled into an armchair, half listening as she outlined initiatives I knew would never materialize. Their company was already in trouble, though they didn't realize it yet. By this time next year, she declared, we'll have offices in Singapore, Shanghai, and Seoul. The Blake name will be global. Assuming the funding comes through, I murmured. What was that? Dad asked sharply. Nothing, I smiled, just thinking out loud. Later that night, in my penthouse apartment, not the small downtown office my family thought I lived above, I reviewed the latest reports from my team. Nexus had already secretly acquired 43% of Blake Industries stock through various subsidiaries. Tomorrow's buying spree would put us over 51%. My phone lit up with another text, this time from my assistant. Board meeting scheduled for next week. All major shareholders will be present. Perfect, I replied. Time to introduce the real CEO of Nexus Technologies. I walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, my family was probably still congratulating themselves on their business acumen, still pitying their failure of a daughter who couldn't cut it in the real corporate world. In 1 week, they would learn how wrong they'd been. In 1 week, they would discover that the daughter they dismissed had built something far bigger than they could imagine. In 1 week, everything would change. I poured myself a glass of the same expensive wine we'd had at dinner, but this time, I allowed myself to smile. Let them laugh. Let them mock my pathetic startup. Their reaction when they discovered the truth would be worth every condescending comment, every dismissive glance, every family dinner spent biting my tongue. After all, revenge is a dish best served with a controlling interest. The week after Christmas passed in a blur of stealth acquisitions and strategic meetings. From my real office, the entire top floor of a downtown skyscraper, I watched as Nexus Technologies systematically gained control of Blake Industries through carefully orchestrated stock purchases. We've crossed the threshold, my CFO, Michael, announced during our morning briefing. 51.3% ownership as of market close yesterday. Blake Industries is effectively ours. I nodded, studying the real-time stock ticker on my wall. Blake Industries' share price had been declining steadily, a fact my family seemed determined to ignore. Their outdated manufacturing processes and resistance to technological innovation had left them vulnerable. What's the status of their funding search? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Desperate, Michael smiled. Every major bank has turned them down. Morgan Stanley won't even take their calls anymore. They've scheduled an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. Family dinner tonight. Mandatory. Dad's orders. I smiled, knowing exactly why this dinner had been called. They needed to discuss the company's financial crisis, but they were too proud to do it anywhere but behind closed doors. Time to prepare for the final act, I told Michael. Make sure all our documentation is ready for tomorrow's board meeting. That evening, I arrived at my parents' mansion to find the atmosphere considerably different from Christmas dinner. Gone were the celebratory wines and smug speeches about expansion. Instead, tension hung heavy in the air as we gathered around the dining table. The situation, Dad began without preamble, is more challenging than we anticipated. Several key investors have expressed concerns about our technological infrastructure. Concerns? Olivia scoffed. They're being ridiculous. Our methods have worked for 40 years. I took a sip of water, watching them carefully. Maybe they're worried about competition from more innovative companies. Not you too, Olivia snapped. Just because you play with computers doesn't make you an expert on manufacturing. Actually, I set down my glass. I know quite a bit about modern manufacturing. For instance, did you know that automated supply chain management can reduce operational costs by up to 40%? That's exactly what we don't need, Dad interrupted. More tech talk. We need serious solutions. Like what? I asked innocently. Have you considered selling some shares to raise capital? Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Sell shares? This is a family company, is it? I pulled out my tablet, because according to public records, ownership has been shifting significantly over the past few months. Olivia leaned forward, her face flushing. What are you talking about? Various investment groups have been quietly acquiring Blake Industries stock. As of today, the Blake family only controls about 30% of the company. Dad stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. That's impossible. I would know if someone was buying us out. Would you? I asked calmly. When was the last time you actually reviewed the shareholder registry? Or are you too busy dismissing technological innovation as unnecessary? How do you know all this? Olivia demanded. Because, I smiled, I've been watching very carefully. Tomorrow's board meeting should be quite interesting. You're not even on the board, Mom said dismissively. No, but Nexus Technologies' CEO is. As the majority shareholder, we're entitled to a seat. The silence that followed was deafening. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me as understanding slowly dawned. Nexus Technologies? Dad whispered. That's your little startup? Not so little anymore, I replied. We're valued at $4.2 billion as of last quarter. And yes, we now own 51.3% of Blake Industries. Olivia's face had gone completely white. You're lying. That's impossible. I pulled up another document on my tablet and slid it across the table. Here's the complete shareholding structure. You'll notice the various shell companies and subsidiaries all lead back to one parent organization, Nexus Technologies. Why? Mom's voice cracked. Why would you do this to your own family? I didn't do anything to you, I said quietly. I built something revolutionary while you were all too busy mocking me to notice. The fact that I now control the company you thought was too good for me. That's just poetic justice. Dad found his voice, anger replacing shock. You think you can just walk in and take over? We'll fight this. With what resources? I stood up, straightening my jacket. Your company is hemorrhaging money. Your technology is outdated. The only thing keeping your stock price from completely collapsing is the fact that I've been buying it. Get out, Olivia hissed. Get out of this house. I picked up my tablet and headed for the door, pausing only briefly. I'll see you all at tomorrow's board meeting. Oh, and Olivia? About that Asian expansion you were so proud of. It's canceled. We have better plans for the company. As I drove away from the mansion, my phone exploded with messages from family members. I ignored them all except one. From my grandmother, who had always seen my potential. Show them what you've built, dear. It's time they learned what real success looks like. In my office later that night, I reviewed the presentation for tomorrow's board meeting. The plan was comprehensive. A complete technological overhaul of Blake Industries, integration with Nexus's advanced systems, and a new management structure. Michael appeared in my doorway. The board members have been notified of the ownership change. Most of them are anxious to meet the real CEO of Nexus Technologies. I'm sure they are, I smiled. Make sure security is ready tomorrow. I have a feeling my family won't take their demotion quietly. As I looked out over the city lights, I thought about all the family dinners where they dismissed my dreams, all the condescending comments about my little startup. Tomorrow, they would learn the truth about the empire I'd built in silence. And this was just the beginning. The morning of the board meeting dawned clear and cold. I dressed with particular care. A custom-designed power suit that cost more than Olivia's entire wardrobe, though she'd never know it. Today wasn't just about taking control. It was about showing my family exactly who I'd become while they weren't watching. Blake Industries headquarters still bore my grandfather's original bronze plaque in the lobby. I ran my fingers across his name as I passed, wondering what he would think of today's events. He had been the true innovator in the family, before Dad turned the company into a monument of outdated thinking. Good morning, Ms. Blake. The security guard nodded respectfully. He'd clearly been briefed about the new ownership structure. The boardroom was already tense when I arrived. 14 board members sat around the massive mahogany table, with Dad at the head, at least for the next few minutes. Olivia sat at his right hand, her face tight with barely controlled rage. Mom had apparently decided to attend as well, though she had no official role. Now that everyone's here, Dad began, his voice strained. We need to discuss. Actually, I interrupted, taking a seat directly opposite him. As majority shareholder, I'll be conducting this meeting. Michael entered with our legal team, distributing documents to each board member. The room fell silent as they read the first page. This is outrageous, Olivia finally exploded. You can't just walk in here and... I can and I am. I cut her off smoothly. Nexus Technologies now owns 51.3% of Blake Industries. My first act as majority shareholder is to restructure the board. Dad, Olivia, you'll find your resignation letters in those packets. Please sign them. I built this company. Dad slammed his fist on the table. No, I corrected him. Grandfather built this company. You inherited it and refused to let it evolve. Now it's bleeding money and losing market share to more innovative competitors. I nodded to Michael, who started the presentation. Charts and graphs appeared on the room's screens, showing Blake Industries' declining performance against market trends. In the past 5 years, I continued, your profit margins have dropped 40%. Your technology is obsolete. 3 major clients have already jumped ship to competitors using modern supply chain management systems, specifically, systems created by Nexus Technologies. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd known things were bad, but seeing the numbers laid bare was shocking. And you think you can fix this? Olivia sneered. With your computers and algorithms? I smiled, clicking to the next slide. We already have. Those same systems you've been mocking have revolutionized manufacturing logistics across the industry. Companies using our platform see an average 60% increase in efficiency, which is why our startup's value has surpassed Blake Industries by several $billion. Mom gasped audibly. Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of red. The choice is simple, I addressed the board. Sign the resignation letters and accept a generous severance package, or face a very public revelation about just how badly you've mismanaged this company. You would destroy your own family's reputation. Mom asked incredulously. You mean the family that never believed in me? That dismissed every achievement because it didn't fit your narrow definition of success. I stood up, commanding the room's attention. I'm not destroying anything. I'm saving this company from your outdated leadership. The board members were already signing the documents, eager to align themselves with the new power structure. They were business people, after all. They could see which way the wind was blowing. Dad stared at the resignation letter for a long moment before finally picking up his pen. I never thought my own daughter would betray me like this. Funny, I replied. I never thought my father would be too proud to see the future of his own industry. I guess we both had blind spots. As security arrived to escort them out, Olivia turned back for one last shot. You'll regret this. You have no idea how to run a real company. I laughed genuinely for the first time that day. My little startup is worth $4.2 billion. I've revolutionized an entire industry while you were playing corporate dress-up. I think I'll manage. After they left, I moved to the head of the table, my grandfather's old seat. Now, shall we discuss the real future of Blake Industries? The next few hours were a blur of strategic planning and reorganization. By the end of the day, Blake Industries had a new board, a new direction, and a new connection to the technological innovations that would save it. 1 week later, the business world was buzzing with the news. Techish Protevijiwi, REVAL Secret Empire. Next U.S. Technology CEO, Techi Skolentiorol, a FAMIOYBUSINES, Sophie Bialaki. The hidden Bilionair. I received exactly one message from my family, a handwritten note from my grandfather, who had been quietly watching from his retirement. You did what I always hoped someone would. You brought Blake Industries into the future. I'm proud of you, kid. The note now sits framed in my office, next to the original business plan for Nexus Technologies that my family had laughed at years ago. Every morning, I look at them both and remember that success doesn't always look like what others expect it to. 3 months later, Blake Industries stock had doubled. Our integrated technology platform was revolutionizing the manufacturing sector, just as I'd predicted. The board members who had so quickly switched allegiance were now falling over themselves to praise my vision. Dad and Olivia eventually tried to reconcile, of course, once the company's success became impossible to ignore. I received elaborate apologies, explanations about how they'd only wanted what was best for me, invitations to family dinners where they promised things would be different. I declined them all. Instead, I sent a simple response. The time for family dinners is past. If you'd like to schedule a meeting, please contact my office. We can discuss your future roles in the company, starting at entry level, of course. Everyone needs to learn the basics of modern manufacturing. They never replied. Now, 1 year later, I sometimes drive past our old family mansion, remembering all those dinners where they dismissed my little startup. The house seems smaller somehow, less imposing. Or maybe I'm just seeing it through new eyes, the eyes of someone who built something bigger than they could imagine. Last week, A young intern asked me why I'd kept my company secret for so long, why I'd let my family underestimate me until I could take control. Sometimes, I told her, being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. People show their true nature when they think you're beneath them, and success is sweetest when no one sees it coming. She nodded thoughtfully, then asked one more question. Was it worth it? Giving up your family for success. I looked out my office window at the city below, at the empire I'd built while they were too busy mocking me to notice. I didn't give up anything, I replied. They gave up on me long ago. I just proved them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. And that, really, was better than any family dinner could ever be.